Good afternoon. My name is Karolina Staniak and I'm Business Development Director of EBS. Today I will give a presentation about practicalities of setting up in the UK and some tax environment and the tips which may be useful for the companies who are looking at the British market. EBS is a British company which has been set up in the UK for over 30 years. Our main purpose is to help foreign businesses to set up and operate in the UK market. So our core services include incorporation of the business in the UK, your virtual finance office, so you don't have to worry about the administrative side of things, and you can focus on developing the market. We also offer assistance with bank account setup, which can be a struggle for the companies with foreign ownership, and also offer any ongoing support once the company has set up in the UK, such as accounting, payroll, any other registrations such as VAT or EIS, which I will be talking about a little bit later. Our company is also licensed accountancy practice, and we are a member of the UK Investment Support Directory. You may have heard that setting up in the UK is pretty straightforward, and I can confirm that it is. Many clients of ours who come from different regions of Europe or anywhere else in the world are quite surprised about how easy and quick it is to set up. So your company obviously needs to be registered, and the registration place is called Companies House. That is where the registration happens. It is your official register. To set up a company, you obviously need to have a name, and there are something like 2 million active companies in Companies Register. So it might be that the name you use in Croatia is already taken, so you need to think about alternatives. But don't worry, you can always add another name, or you can trade under your existing name and just add on the bottom of your website that is your registration name. That is allowed. Your company must have at least one shareholder and one director, and these people or companies don't have to be residents of the UK. So you can be director being based in Croatia. You actually don't have to come to the UK to set up the company. Everything can be done online. All the signatures can be also done electronically. The documents which are needed in order to form the company are identity documents of the directors, and also any people who own majority of the company, so over 25%. If your Croatian company will be a mother company, we also need the information from the Croatian registry showing the shareholders' details as well as the address of the company in Croatia. And with this information, we can start the process. The UK company can be formed in 2 days. So once we've got the information, we prepare your constitution, your articles, and we also prepare your memorandum. And with that, the process takes literally a couple of days, sometimes even 1 day. You don't need to come to the UK. There is only one registration. And once the company is formed, it can officially trade from day one. Now, there are 2 quite important functions which are unusual to the rest of the European countries. Registered office, that is the legal official address which your company must have in the UK. Now we can provide you with the registered office in our office at the Innovation Centre, where we are based at the University of Warwick Science Park. The legal address serves a very important role. It is where all the official letters will be sent to, and where they have to be effective as well in order to, for example, if you've got letter from authorities, letter from the courts, letter from the banks, all these letters will be sent to your registered office. So you may think, oh, I've got a friend in the UK who has got an address. That is all great, and you can add that as a registered address. But you need to think about what will happen if your friend, for example, leaves the UK or moves the address and goes on holiday. Some of these official letters have a date, for example, that you need to respond within 2-3 weeks. And if you won't, you will either be fined or you will lose the case. So it is important that you have your registered office with your professional provider, with your legal advisors, with your accountants. You can have your business address, where your company trades from, somewhere else if you wish. So for example, you would like to employ 3 people, have a small office. You don't have to have it at the same place as registered address. And quite a lot it happens to our clients that they register the company. Because you don't have to have a physical office, they use registered office with us. And then the business goes really well and they want to employ, but they decide they want to employ somewhere closer to the main client. And that is fine, and you can still do it, and you can keep your registered office with your legal providers. Now, company secretary is an unusual for Europe function. It is appointed by directors, a legal representative. And that representative is able to talk to tax authorities, companies registered on your behalf. Now, company secretary doesn't have a power. It is just there to serve and make it easy for your company to function. And it's very helpful, especially if you haven't got anybody employed in the UK. Now, this table shows a little comparison between main countries, the largest countries in Europe. Companies often ask, oh, how easy it is to set up in Germany in comparison to the UK or Spain or Netherlands. So as you can see, the time in which you can form the company in the UK is the fastest. Spain and Germany is quite long. Netherlands is not too bad, actually, but you need to have Dutch representative to form the company. The share capital in the UK is actually 1 share, and you can decide on the nominal value. So although I did put £1 here, you can go as low as 1 penny if you like. Again, in comparison, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, you need to have £25,000 in your bank account in order to start. In the UK, you haven't got a bank account until you actually open a company. So your cash flow can start very small. Your risk is very small when you start in the UK. The company tax in the UK has recently changed back in April. It used to be 19% flat rate. Now it's anything between 19 to 25%. And it all depends on the profits of the company. So if your company profits in the UK are under £50,000, it is still 19%. And then it's a staggered rate, which goes all the way to 25%. If your company's profits are over £250,000, that is when you pay 25% on your profits. You don't pay corporation tax if you don't make profit. Now, the due month, that means that when the company pays the corporation tax. Actually, in the UK, You pay it once a year, and you've got 9 months after your book closing date to file and pay your corporation tax. So again, if you're looking at other major economies in Europe, Germany, 4 times a year, and actual German corporation tax is quite high as well, and it depends where you set up your business. In the UK, it doesn't matter. The corporation tax is exactly the same, doesn't depend on the regions. Now, you may have heard or not that the bank account opening in the UK might be quite difficult. And more our clients use different service providers to your traditional bank account banks. So we more and more suggest to look at the fintech providers, so electronic money providers rather than the traditional banks. So if you are looking, once you set up, if you are looking at setting up a bank account, which you probably will be, you should be considering bank which maybe will have an appetite for inward investment companies, so with the foreign ownership, or the bank which specialize in your industry, or also the banks which will only offer electronic payments, such as fintechs. These are probably one of the easiest banks to open a bank account with. Now, we do also offer a client a bank account. This is the solution which enables clients to have the bank account operating from day one. That means that if you want to employ, if you want to pay the costs in the UK or receive funding into the UK bank account, you can do it with the client account. This is because it's a client account, there are certain criteria which your company must meet. First of all, you need to be set up in the UK. Our company must become a company secretary, and also your registered office must be at EBS's address. Because it is a client account, EBS takes a complete responsibility for any anti-money laundering risk and also compliance. That means that the banks relies on EBS monitoring. Hence why we would usually also say that in order to open the client account, we also need to be able to prepare your management accounts and do your bookkeeping, and to be able to see all the transactions on the regular basis. The tax system in the UK is pretty straightforward. Like I mentioned, the corporation tax rate is anything between 19 and 25%. And you can carry your losses forward without limit. That means if your company made a loss, you can offset that loss against your future profits. Even more, if your company made a profit in year 1, but loss in year 2, you can carry that loss back 1 year for a refund. And that is quite a new thing comparing to any other European jurisdictions. Something which is worth mentioning is that the UK doesn't charge dividends received unless they come from countries which UK classes as tax haven. Also, there is no withholding tax on dividends paid. That means that if you are a shareholder of the UK company and you live in Croatia, you receive the dividends from the UK company, but you actually don't pay any tax in the UK on those dividends. So you, of course, need to declare them back in your home country, but the UK doesn't charge withholding tax. VAT, there is a rate of 20% for VAT for most of things. there are certain exemptions, and I'm happy to go through them individually if you already are, for example, VAT exempt company in Croatia. You don't have to register for VAT unless your taxable turnover exceeds £85,000 in any 12 months period. Once you're registered, you must provide your VAT return every quarter, and that is something we can also support you as part of accounting. Excuse me. And finally, there is no tax on issuing new shares, which means if you are looking at investment in the UK company, you receive the investment, you find an angel investor, for example, you can add new shares without paying any tax on those. There is a small stamp duty on transfer of shares, but it's only 0.5%. And I would like to bring up enterprise investment scheme and seed enterprise investment scheme, which are two very interesting for the companies who are looking to raise investment in the UK schemes. These schemes are basically incentives to your investors, but your UK company must meet certain requirements in order to receive what's called advance assurance from their tax authorities. First of all, you need to be UK-based company. Second, you cannot be controlled by another company. So if you know that you are looking at EIS and SEIS, before the company is formed, it's something to mention, because your Croatian company then cannot control the UK business. And the company cannot be large, so cannot be listed on recognized stock exchange, and also needs to carry out a trade that qualifies. So why is it so interesting? First of all, your company can raise up to £1 million on EIS, and your investor will receive up to 30% of the amount invested, which can be set against income tax. And if it's SEIS, which is Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme, can raise up to £100,000, and your investors receives 50% of your qualifying costs against the income tax. Also, for both EIS and SEIS, your investor will not pay any tax on the profits they made if they sold their shares after 3 years period. If your company is doing research and development, there is quite significant relief in the UK called R&D tax relief. Basically, if your company, first of all, it's got to be done in the UK in order to qualify for it. Again, you need to apply to tax specialist, the government office, and they basically go through your qualifying costs. What are you proposing you will be doing in the UK in terms of R&D? And then they will grant you what's called advance assurance. With that, you've got 3 years of approved kind of work you can do under R&D tax relief. So for every £100 you spend, you receive additional 86% of the qualifying costs back. So in total, you receive a tax credit of 186%. And you can also surrender the costs and receive a cash payment from the government. So there are a number of costs which qualify for the tax relief. And some of it is, for example, if you're using subcontractors, a lot of R&D happens in universities in the UK. So you can subcontract basically most of your R&D to university. Also, if you're using software, any consumable goods, like stationery, computers, whatever you need for your R&D. Also, UK employees and directors' wages, and also expenses. There are also other things which are not included on the slide, and again, happy to send more information if relevant. And finally, these are my details. If you wish to have a discussion, please do drop me an email or give me a ring. Happy to have a one-to-one chat about your UK company plans and how I might be able to assist. Thank you very much. Back to you, Heidi.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Carolina, for this presentation and information and some of the tips and tricks on setting up in the UK. I do have several questions.
Okay.
I'm sure the people that are looking into really setting up will have even more specific ones pertaining to their businesses, but these are just a little bit general. And also, for example, the one about the refund on corporation tax, so that you can go back a year. That is unusual because, for example, in Croatia, you don't really ask for refund from tax authorities unless you really, really have to. So what is the reason for that it's so easily
Yes, well, the reason is that UK government want to collect tax, obviously, and want the companies to do well. If your company is not doing well, if it's making loss, that means your employees might be in risk. That means that possibly if your company goes bust, you close it down, these people will be without jobs. That means that might be applying, for benefits, which obviously means that the UK will be losing money rather than gaining. So it is easier for the UK government to help the businesses this way and help them to offset and help them to kind of go through another year and hopefully pick up the business and also save the jobs. So that is pretty much why.
Well, that's actually smart thinking, if I may say so. We'll notify our tax authorities about that.
Yes, that's it. This is a tip.
Lovely, thank you. Then about the SEIS and EIS scheme. So the investors that also have to, of course, register and can invest only in the startups that have received the advance insurance for that.
That's right.
So you say they get tax reliefs immediately when they invest, but from what I understand, they also have minimum risk in case the startup, for example, fails.
So actually, if the investor invests, the shares received, which they buy basically from the company, need to be the shares which have the same risk as everybody else in the company. So the risk is spread exactly the same across all of the shareholders. But that is right. The major part is that the company needs to apply for advance assurance. So it is on company's shoulder to make sure that they are registered for EIS, SEIS. Without that, the investor can't invest. And it is important that when you set up a company, you have that company set up right for the investment for EIS incentive. So the company in the UK cannot be controlled by any other business. And that is a kind of main thing which gets companies quite a lot. So think about it before. If you know that you are interested in raising investment through EIS and CIS, start from setting up company right way from beginning. That will just save you costs later on. But the shares of the investor have to be the same as everybody else's. So they don't have any actually special treatment, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So that is a little bit of a difference. If I'm not mistaken, a few years back, the company could have been a subsidiary as well, but now it has to be the main, so the mother company, so to say, in order to be eligible for the investment schemes.
That's right. For EIS and SEIS, yes.
Okay. And I just wanted to mention this about the possible failure. Compared to the countries that don't have such investment schemes, so to say. So the investors in the startups that enable those tax reliefs are also diminishing the risk in case of the failure of the startup for the investors, because then they get additional tax
relief, yes.
Relief, even if the startup fails. So just wanted to say that sometimes it's kind of easier to find an investor if you are eligible for SEIS than EIS than it is in some other countries. That's all I want.
Definitely, Heidi, and even more, you will find that a lot of angel investors will wait until end of the tax year to see to invest and see how much they can offset against the income tax. So yeah, there are little tricks. And again, where we are based at the University of Warwick Science Park. We've got one of the largest angel network called Minerva. They've started off University of Warwick, but now they pretty much have their base in most of the UK. So again, this is angel investors, and they would be looking at investing in the UK-based companies with SEIS and EIS registrations.
Good to know. But what is it with the R&D tax reliefs? Is it also a requirement for the company to be a mother company, or can a subsidiary?
No, for R&D, it can be a subsidiary. The main thing is that all of the R&D must be done in the UK. It doesn't have to be done by the company. It can be outsourced, like I mentioned. Used by you can use partners, universities, etc. But now it has to be done in the UK exclusively. A few years back, it could be a range of overseas versus UK, but now it's all got to be back in the UK.
Unless it's something that doesn't exist in the UK, right?
That's right, Heidi. You remember? Yes. So let's say there is for example, one of our clients does some R&D for CERN, which is the obviously the Institute of Nuclear and Atomic Physics, in Switzerland and France. So obviously there is only one institute like that in the whole of the Europe. So they can't go. CERN is not going to come to the UK. They need to go to CERN. So that is, you can get a kind of, dispensation if there is a special requirement that, for example, you need that particular place to, for example, undertake your R&D.
Yeah, but that's a very special exemption.
Yes, that's it.
Not many will be granted. Lovely. And I dare say last question from my side is, so EBS is kind of a trusted company and service. You work with the UK government to help the businesses come to the UK, but your services do cost something. So if you can give us at least a little bit of a range so that our members and startups here, if they are looking at entering the UK market, would know what to expect price-wise.
Sure. So our startup package, which includes company incorporation, first year of registered office, company secretarial service, bank account opening, and first year of your accounting service is £2,500. that is a kind of package which you can break down if you like, but usually that means that you've got everything covered in your first year. In addition, if you wish to start employing people in the UK, we've got separate payroll, and that is about £40 a month. And then obviously there are ongoing accounting fees in the second year, and that is pretty much depending on the level of service and number of transactions, whether your company is VAT registered, etc. So happy to discuss that one-to-one with the companies, because sometimes, again, in the UK, you don't have a requirement that you have to have monthly accounting. So sometimes we can kind of do it on a quarterly basis if the company is small, only starts in the UK with one transaction a month. If it doesn't have VAT registration because it hasn't reached the threshold, it doesn't have to be because it doesn't sell goods, then we can easily just do once a year calculation of the corporation tax return and file the accounts. So it's a little bit more flexible than most countries as well.
Definitely, and especially compared to Croatia, where administrative burden is quite high. Lovely. Thank you so much, Carolina, for everything and presentation and all the information. We have your contact. So whoever wants to get in touch with you, I'm sure they will. And wishing you a lovely day and good business.
Thank you very much, Heidi, for inviting me, and I hope we will be able to do business with some of the companies you work with. And I look forward to your emails, and yeah, please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.